everyone, and welcome back to another new video. Tonight, at least in the Netherlands it was in the night, Riot dropped some new information about the Assassin update. So I'm going to make an update video about this one. So we have been anticipating the Assassin Rework for quite a while now, and we finally have got the changes, so we know what everything is and what will change. So let's get right into these changes. Let's start off with Talon. Talon gets even more Assassin's Creed vibes, at least with me. The changes are as follows. His new passive is called Blade Sand. Talon's abilities put a mark on the enemy. When 3 marks are applied, Talon can basic attack them to make them bleed for a short duration. This is a great change since his old passive didn't really give him much because his old passive was if you have CC'd someone you do more damage to them, but he couldn't really CC someone for very long. His old E had like a slow for half a second, so his former passive was very useless, but now it's a very good passive. So yeah, his passive became great. His Q is really cool in my opinion, his new Q. It has the same name, but it has some new features. So Talon leaps forward towards the target, dealing physical damage of course. And if he's in melee range, he will instead critically strike the target. And on top of that, he now gains some health if his Q kills a target. Like even if he kills a minion, he regains some health, so that's very nice for Talon, because he will be a mid laner still. I'm predicting he would still be a mid laner. So that sustain is very nice, because as a melee champion you are pretty vulnerable to harass in lane. So that's a great change, because now you have some sustain in lane. His W is pretty much the same thing. It looks like it takes longer for the blades to return to him though. I don't know if that's just my eyes playing tricks on me, but it just looks like it takes a little bit longer. It also of course applies 2 stacks of your passive, and that's pretty good, because 2 stacks of your passive and you can just hit them with 1 more ability and out attack them for the bleed, so that's pretty good. It also still slows, and it deals increased damage on the return, so that's pretty good. Then we have his new E, and this is really awesome. I really like this new ability. It's very awesome. Talon can now jump over walls, and yeah, it looks pretty cool in the video, you can see. And they wanted to improve his roaming, and this ability certainly makes him way better at roaming. Because just imagine chasing a Talon, or he's just coming bot lane, he just jumps over your wall, kills the ADC. It's awesome, because I really like assassins, and this ability, it just looks very cool. It does have a pretty long cooldown, it says. So before you can hop over the same wall, you have to wait probably about a minute or so. I don't really know yet, because I haven't seen it in game. And lastly, of course, is his ultimate. The ultimate is pretty much the same thing. He still throws out a circle of blades around him. He gains some movement speed, makes him invisible. After coming out of stealth, the blades return to him. Yeah, it's the same old thing. I think this really improves Talon. I really like the changes. I'm really glad they removed the blink, because that's kind of hard to counterplay, but with his new Q you can like Thresh can flame him while he's in the air and stuff, so that's very cool. And his E is just so cool, and the passive has also been improved a lot, so Riot did a good job with this one. So let's head over to Rengar. Rengar has received some nice changes as well. His passive was changed a little bit. Both the bush jumping part and the bone tooth necklace was changed. Rengar can still leap to targets from bushes though, so they're not removing his signature move. So he can still jump from bushes, and engaging in combat, like entering combat, gives him 1 ferocity when you jump out of a bush, and that's really good, because now he only needs 4 ferocity for an empowered ability instead of 5. So that is a great buff for him. When you jump at someone, you enter combat, you get 1 ferocity, you can just use your 3 abilities and then an empowered one, so that will really improve his dueling. So I think top lane Rengar would be a little bit stronger because of that. His bone tooth necklace also got changed. Whenever he takes down a champion, he now gets permanent AD for every unique champion, so he can get 5 AD boosts. This is a pretty good change, because first he was like getting more leap range and that sort of stuff, so that just wasn't healthy for the game, and it was really hard to get like 21 trophies, I think. So this is way better. I just hope they don't give him too much AD, because I don't want Rengar to be super OP, but we'll have to see once it hits the live servers. Then we have his new Q, and it has become kind of a skill shot. You need to aim it, but it is pretty hard to miss. Rengar now cleaves in an area in front of him, and then he stabs in front of him. So as you can see on the video, and if he has 4 ferocity ready, then he deals more damage, and his stabbing range is increased by a little bit. A little change, but I don't think it's that much of a change, but I'm pretty happy that I won't be one-shot anymore by just Rengar jumping out of stealth with his Q already activated and just killing me. So we'll have to see how that works out. His W changes are very interesting in my opinion. His Roar now heals him without ferocity as well, and he heals for a portion of the damage taken in the last few moments. So I think this will be really great in duels, like you're just dueling the other jungler and you just use your W and you just heal like a quarter of your health back. You know, it's like really good in that those situations. So yeah, and if you have full ferocity, that's really crazy. You just cleanse crowd control effects, and it prevents incoming crowd control effects for like half a second for a short duration. And that's just like having Gangplank oranges. It heals you and it cleanses. So that's also really awesome that he gets that. But I don't know if this will be a little bit too OP for Rengar. But at least his W now has a purpose to be used in a team fight, because you would never really use your W in a team fight because you already use your empowered Q. But this W really gives him some new opportunities, some new some new play styles, and I think it will be interesting to see what you can do with this. And his E is exactly the same thing. You still throw a bola that slows and snares the target. And now I think it will be more of like, when do I use my Q, when do I use my E, when do I use my W with my ferocity. I think that would be very interesting, because they're all pretty good now. Like all of the abilities are good when they're empowered. So we have to see how that turns out. And Rengar's ult has received quite a nerf in my opinion, because Rengar becomes stealth for a long period of time, gains move speed. That's normal, he already has that, but he can only see the nearest enemy champion, and that's really shitty for him. Like in a team fight, the team can just clutter up around the ADC and you can't jump him anymore, because you can see him. But what's really good is that your first leap, your strike after you leap, is always a guaranteed crit. So that's very good. You just get a lot of AD, and that will work out just fine. You also gain some ferocity, I think you still do. I don't know if I like the changes to Rengar. I'll have to see once it hits live, because I don't have a PvE account. But hey, we'll see. Now, LeBlanc is also someone who is getting reworked. She has received quite some changes to her passive, her Q and her R. So let's start with her passive. Her passive is her old Q. Whenever you hit an ability a sigil of malice will be placed on the target, so that's her old Q, but it takes like half a second before a second before it takes effect, and it takes a little bit time, and then if you hit another ability on that person, you deal extra damage because you pop the mark. So still, like, it's the old Q, it's just the old Q. You place it on someone by using one ability and you pop it with another. Her new Q is called Shatter Orb. It fires an orb that damages an enemy if it is it is still a targeted ability, but there's a twist to this orb, because if her passive is on the minion or champion that you're selecting, if you use your Q on that, you can see it on the video, it pops, it like shatters like the name suggests, and it goes to other people that have your passive mark on them. Her new W, not her new W, the W is just almost the same ability, you just dash to a target location and do some magic damage. Her E is also the same thing, you launch a chain which pops after a couple seconds, it snares, but it now has a range indicator, and as you can see on the video, it's very interesting because it actually pops the passive mark from just that one ability. So that will be pretty good, I think, just to W in lane, to the side, just to hit your E through minions or something. So yeah, we'll have to see how good that ability works with her new passive. Now her ultimate is completely different, it's pretty crazy. So she becomes invisible for a short duration, creating a clone of herself to take her place. So it's almost like her old passive almost. And this clone just casts a stronger version of one of her abilities. The clone only lasts a couple of seconds, or it expires when it's damaged by turrets or champions. If you choose to mimic her ultimate, so if you use your ultimate to use your ultimate, you will instead place a clone at the target location, and this clone uses an ability but doesn't do damage. But you can like trick people or spook them into using summoners or other abilities, so that's pretty good. I think it will be interesting to see how you can outplay people with this, and LeBlanc has become quite tricky indeed. Now let's head on to Katarina, the last of the big changes. Katarina, her passive stayed the same. She gets a lot of cooldown refunded if you kill someone, like it completely resets her Q, W and E, I think, probably, and just cuts like 15-16 seconds of her ultimate. So that's the same thing. Her Q has got a very interesting change. Well, Katarina overall, she has a new mechanic with daggers. So Katarina throws a dagger, this bounces to 3 units, so just like before, and then it falls on the ground. And if she picks up the dagger, she uses her old W, kind of. She spins around and deals magic damage in an area. So yeah, her W is also with this new mechanic, the dagger. She just tosses a dagger in the air and it lands where she casts the ability. So if you walk over there, you use your old W, and you also get a nice movement speed buff after you've used it for a little bit. And yeah, that's her W. That's pretty interesting how you can use this, because of her E got a little change. Once her E is still shampoo, she can blink to a target. This can be an ally, enemy, or a dagger. So if you shampoo onto a dagger, you will actually use your old W and you will reset your shampoo. So that's pretty cool, because now in the video they already show you the little combo like Q, W, E, E, E. It's very interesting. I think this will make Katarina a little bit harder to play, and I think it's a very cool mechanic. And it will make her even more mobile, which I think is pretty cool. Her ultimate is just the same thing, but now it has a range indicator just like LeBlanc's E. those were all the major reworks, but there were also quite a bit of small changes, like to Fizz, Zed, Akali, Kha'Zix, and Shaco, and Echo. I'm missing Echo. So let's go over those little changes right now. Fizz's ultimate grows bigger the more distance it had traveled, so he just throws out the fish, and if you use it very close to you, it's a smaller ring than when you would just throw it the whole distance. Zed's ultimate got a small tweak. If you kill a champion with death mark, Zed will permanently gain a portion of their AD, and he doesn't steal the AD from the champion, and that was something I was very confused about. I thought, what the hell, is he just stealing AD right now? But luckily that is not the case. That would be very OP, especially against the ADC. It's like, hey, I just finished my item and now I'm dead because of Zed. Hey, there goes 30% of my AD. But luckily that's not the case. Then we have Akali. She now has a little dash and leaves her Twilight Shroud behind at her original location. So that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool change. You have Kha'Zix. His evolutions of his Q, W, and R will be better against isolated targets. That's just all that it says. Shaco's clone now drops 3 Jack-in-the-Boxes and causes enemies to flee when it dies. And I think this change is very cool. So we'll have to see how that works out. And last but not least, we have Echo. And Echo's passive no longer slows. This is quite a big nerf to tank Echo, but they don't really want tank Echo to exist anymore, so I understand the change. But Chrono Break triggers parallel convergence as Echo travels back through time, so that's a pretty good change. And those were all the little changes, yeah. So I like the small changes. I'm a little bit worried about Zed because he's already quite good, and I don't really know if we should give him more AD. But hey, only time will tell. Now we've also got some item changes, some itemization. So let's just start off with a new stat new stat. It's not really new because it's just armor penetration, flat armor penetration, but now it's called lethality, and it's just flat armor penetration. It's the same but just a new name. Some items got changed. First of all, we have a new item, Poacher's Dirk. This encourages counter jungling because it gives you attack damage, and after poaching enough large monsters from the enemy jungle, it transforms into a Serrated Dirk. And Serrated Dirk is of course the bread and butter of all assassins. Serrated Dirk also got a little change. It no longer has a passive of dealing more damage after you kill the unit. Instead it gives out of combat movement speed on top of some AD and lethality, which of course is the new flat armor penetration. Then you have Sorcerer's Bane. It is a new item. It gives attack damage, lethality, out of combat movement speed, and some magic resist. It also has an active code Veil, and Veil, after briefly channeling, you gain a spell shield, and this has a very high skill cap, so I'm very excited to see what they will do with this item, because I will surely be having fun with this item, playing with it, because a spell shield, it's very powerful. It's a very powerful ability. Then Duskblade got a nice change. It now no longer has the Nightfall passive, like the pop, the little death mark, but it now has it also gives movement speed out of combat because it builds out of Serrated Dirk, and it has 2 new passives actually. You have Night Stalker and Blackout, and Night Stalker is a very powerful passive because it is this what it does. After being unseen, your next basic attack deals bonus true damage, and that's very powerful. It's really, really powerful. And Blackout is also very good because you gain true sight when you're spotted by an enemy ward. So that's like you're a walking pink ward now. And I don't know if this has a cooldown or not. If it does, it probably should. And this is also very powerful because if you're thinking about taking Dragon or Baron, you don't really need a pink ward, because later in the game you have full inventory, you have full build, you can't really buy pinks anymore, and yeah, you just are a walking pink ward. Yomus is also an item that got some changes. It now gives AD lethality out of combat movement speed, not out of movement combat speed. That would be very weird. And some cooldown reduction. And that's a lot of stats, lots of different stats. And on top of that, its active got changed. It now still grants the movement speed, and it blocks the next enemy basic attacks unless you attack first. And this is very interesting as well. You can outplay people with this. It's like having a Pantheon passive, like on active. And if you have really quick fingers, you can outplay people so hard with this. So I'm very excited to see how this will work. And the last item that could change was Maw of Malmortius. It now builds out of Crawlfield's Warhammer instead of Serrated Dirk, so it doesn't give any lethality, and that's the only change. Those were the items that were changed. Now the last part, we have stealth updates and a new ward. Now stealth has been divided into two categories, camouflage and invisibility. Camouflage is like Evelyn's passive. If you get too close to the enemy, they can see you. If you keep your distance, you should be fine. Like Twitch has this on his Q. And yeah, you shouldn't really get close to anyone with Twitch. So that's a very good change, because you can still see it if you're like a melee champion and you're chasing him. So yeah, camouflage is pretty cool. And invisibilities are abilities or effects that don't really last long. So like Wukong W, Kha'Zix's ult, etc. And it can be used during combat, but not to move around the map. So that's what balance they're taking. And those stealth abilities are now categorized as invisibility. And the last change to a new type is a new type of ward. It's called a control ward. And control wards are the new pink wards. They control vision even more by revealing wards and disabling the ward. And that's pretty cool, because you can control lots of vision around the map with these, and in high level play these will get used for sure. This is an interesting change, and I'm excited to see how it all plays out in the pre-season of Season 7. And I think that's all for this video, so let me know what you think of the changes in the comments below. Please leave a like, even subscribe if you want to, and I will see you all in my next video.